Well, I'd like to welcome everyone to today's program. We have a really good topic to share with you today. I'm with Patty Olinger, the Executive Director of the GBAC team, the Global Biorisk Advisory Council, a division of ISSA. Hello, Patty. How are you today?
Hi, Jeff. I'm doing well. And you?
Doing well. Yeah, it's a good day to talk about something interesting like passports. Most of us have a passport when we travel. Looks like you have mine or I have yours. We need them to cross borders, but there's another kind of passport that has your interest. It might be more about not traveling so much, but proving something. Tell us about that.
The vaccine passport that a lot of people have been talking about, specifically with COVID-19. And what we're seeing is that in other countries, if you want to go visit, they may require you to be able to show that you have been vaccinated. And we've even seen testing capability or whether or not you've been tested within a certain number of days before you travel here, even in the United States. So for example, if you want to go to Hawaii, you have to show that you're COVID negative. And also there have been some trade shows that required that you either are tested on site or that within 72 hours that you have been tested. So we're starting to see some of this. And what we're seeing is they're calling it a vaccine passport. We're seeing several apps that are now on phones. Some of them are universal apps where you can upload information. Some of them are specific to a specific test. Like this is the Binex Now test, and they are with Navica, and you have to have that app. I had to go through something recently, another type of test, a home PCR test, that they uploaded the information and you ended up downloading a barcode that said you had been tested. But the whole concept of the passport is something interesting because it's not something new. Several folks, who have to go into like Africa or some other countries where yellow fever might be, endemic, or that there might be an outbreak, get something that's called a yellow card. And I've had this for many years. On that yellow card, it also has the place for all the other vaccines that I've had, and everything. And so it was it was one place basically that I could keep track of all my vaccines, so that when I went to another country and they wanted to see what I was vaccinated for, I could show that. Now we have another card. Those of us who've had the vaccines, whether it's the Pfizer, Moderna, or the J&J, or whatever else comes out, we get this card. Yeah, you have one too.
Yep, I have one as well. It's the same card. It looks like from the CDC. So proof that I got my shot. You must not be afraid of shots, Patty, because there's a lot of vaccines on that card.
There is a lot of vaccines on that card. When you go into some areas of like sub-Saharan Africa or Southeast Asia, you're getting the hepatitis A, the typhoid, you name it, making sure that your other vaccines like, your measles, mumps, rubella are up to date, your boosters, which is something that we don't think about, necessarily. But when you're going into some of these countries where maybe they don't have the capacity to have the level of vaccinations that we do here, you want to protect them as well. And so that's really important to remember that.
Tell us a little bit about social sensitivities. And I asked that question because I recently told a coworker going to a trade show that I have my vaccine, and he was uncomfortable sharing whether he had it or not. And he said that was a personal decision, which it is. But how does that play into this entire topic of vaccine passports and documentation?
That's going to be really interesting because, if there's the personal information and the respect for personal information that we have to be sensitive to. There's also going to be legal issues associated with that and HIPAA issues associated with that. But in the event that you want to go to another country, you have to be able to show that if that's the requirement to enter into that country. And so being able to have a card, there's concerns about cards being lost or, also being lost or forged. Being able to upload it to an app, there's a lot of questions about that with, sensitivity to electronic information. Some of the electronic passports, it's like it's only available on the device and it doesn't get uploaded to a cloud, say. So there's a lot of information, a lot of legal, I would say, questions that are going to have to be answered as we go forward. I think the one that's going to be interesting is employer or employee requirements. And that's one that, I think time will tell where all of those legal parameters fall.
Yes. In fact, one thing we wanted to talk about today is somewhat on that topic. An employer has employees that go out and do the cleaning, and they might use that as a marketing message, a marketing tool to tell their clientele or potential customers, potential buildings they might service, that their staff, the cleaning crew, has been vaccinated. Do you see that happening?
Do I see it happening? I see it as employers wanting to do that. And I understand why you would want to say, we're prepared, we're ready. We've taken these steps to bring that confidence in our company. That's where I think, we're still looking at what the legal ramifications are. It's probably one of those things where if all the employees are okay with that, that's one thing. But that employment law, I have not seen a really good description of what those employment laws are. Now, having said that, if you look at something like the OSHA bloodborne pathogen standard, and in that standard, an employer is responsible for offering the hepatitis B vaccination. And if an employee decides not to take it, they have to sign a declination form. And that's part of the requirements of the standard. If OSHA does come out with a new infectious disease airborne standard or COVID standard, that will be interesting to see, now that we have vaccines, where the vaccine requirements will play within that new standard if we get a new standard.
Yeah, a crazy question just crossed my mind. It happens now and then, maybe a lawyer question. If you have an employee and they're willing to be part of the marketing of sharing that they have been vaccinated, I wonder if they could be paid more money because they're part of that program. Kind of like working a different shift. You make more money because of working that shift. I don't know. It's something that no doubt is going to come up.
Now, I'm not sure. I will say that what we have seen is that not an employee, but like there have been some universities that are now saying that if their students want to come back to campus, they must be vaccinated, just like you have to show that you have other types of vaccines to go to campus, unless, there's usually exemptions like medical reasons that you can't be vaccinated, or depending on the state, religious reasons. But I know that some medical schools have required that residents and medical students become vaccinated. I think you will probably see some healthcare require vaccination, just like they do for the flu vaccine, as well as hepatitis B. So I think you're going to see some industries pushing or moving in that direction. And it will be interesting to watch from, like you said, from a legal standpoint and from a public perception standpoint.
Mm-hmm. One more topic, Patty. Let's talk about this. It's interesting. I saw in my newspaper this article, will unvaccinated people be shunned? And it compared, I'm going to paraphrase this a little bit, smokers to unvaccinated people. And we remember back in the past, you would have smokers among non-smokers, and until the science proved it, the non-smokers really didn't think much about that secondhand smoke. Then the science came out and they said it's dangerous. Now you have smoking sections and non-smoking sections, even on airplanes, us thinking that the smoke doesn't travel from one part of an airplane to another. Well, that was not exactly correct thinking. But my point is that once science spoke, then smoking indoors pretty much has gone away, except in a very few places in this country. Can we see something similar with vaccinated people and unvaccinated people, separate groups, like the smoking situation?
I think here in the United States, that's going to be difficult, again, because of the protection of that information. But when we start thinking about traveling internationally, and if a country chooses that for you to visit my country, you must show vaccination status, and or it may be together, vaccination status and a COVID negative test. I think you will see some of that for travel, especially international travel. And that's the right of that country. If you think about it, they can make those choices.
Yeah, this article says that this could get messy. This whole situation could get messy. So maybe there's no answer to these questions, but messy could happen. We're not going to have a stamp on our forehead telling people we've been vaccinated. You can't see it like you can a smoker holding a cigarette. So interesting topics here, Patty. We'll have to do more on these as we see this unravel, this vaccination issue. But I'm glad to see you have your passport there, and I've started on mine. So we'll hopefully travel again one day.
Absolutely. We're ready.
All right, Patty. Thank you very much.